So you're telling me there's a chance? Where have we heard that before? Oh yeah, Dumb and Dumber. Hey everybody, it's Kevin coming to you once again with Weeds Weekly Update. We cover this past week of what happened in the mortgage industry and real estate industry, what we can anticipate for this week. I got some great thoughts for you, great opportunity for you to be picking up the phone, talking to potential clients, talking to current clients, and then make no mistake about it. I've been talking about it since the very first episode of 2024. These next 7 days dictate the rest of 2024, and I'll talk about that more. But first, let's just talk about, hey, is there a chance, right? So this past week, we started out the week basically flat, moving sideways like we said, nothing to see here, blah, 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 blah. However, we had a lot of data that came out last week. It just wasn't the big data that's coming up. So although the good news was 90% of it was favorable. And that's what moved the market a little bit. Come Thursday and Friday, we started to see some reprieve in interest rates. And the reflection of was just a cumulative of data that was positive to us, although not the big numbers, but definitely in our favor. So what it did is it actually gave us some relief in the fact that we closed on the 10-year Treasury below our recent floor of 4.2%. So that was great news, right? It kind of gave us a little bit of hope as we head into this week. So it gave that temporary relief. However, what it didn't do, look, 7 is my lucky number, and as it pertains to interest rates, it clearly is not. We pretty much have figured out, and what's interesting is that 7% seems to be the number that slows the market down. You see mortgage applications are down, real estate numbers are down. Everyone's kind of in this lull because now we've crept above, on average, 7% depending on your credit. And it just has once again put people in quicksand. There's no real ability to refinance. Purchases have slowed down. And what we're seeing is that 7% number it's just not so lucky, right? So, and the good thing, however, is once again, just to go back that, we got below that floor. So look, we'll take the small wins. As I put in the article is, look, beggars can't be choosers, right? We can't just be like, we want rates down into the 5% range and it's automatically going to happen, because we've been talking about that now for probably 9 months and it hasn't happened. So we just, hey, look, beggars can't be choosers. Let's take the small wins that we have this week, and now let's focus all of our attention on this coming week. So let's just kind of get to it. So, hey, are you ready for potential chaos, dysfunction, fireworks? If that's your cup of tea, you love and strive in that environment, this is the week for you, right? So while we have really relevant data coming out this week, the biggest one, the elephants in the room are the following. Friday, we have the non-farms payroll, the jobs report. And the following Tuesday on the 12th, we have CPI. And at all costs, we need this information to come in non-inflationary. We need to see that the Fed policies are finally coming to fruition, and we're going to be able to start moving in that direction. So my thought is the following. If you're working with a client right now, you have a deal under contract or you are going to sign it this week, here's great advice. We as people in the mortgage industry work in two different worlds. You're either an LO or broker or you're with a bank. And if you're with an LO or broker, you are literally signed up with over 100 different lenders that you can send a loan to. So my advice to you, and here's your opportunity to call your clients, is you want to give them the advice to float but lock. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but hear me out for real quick. This week, I think we're going to see a slight dip. It's not going to be a big dip, but what we want to do is we want to hedge against Friday's non-farm payroll report data set and next Tuesday's CPI report. By locking now, you're safeguarding your client, and your LO or broker can have a conversation with your client and get them comfortable with the current payment, where it is today, right? So now if the market comes out unfavorable to us Friday and Tuesday, you're good. You're not in jeopardy now of your deal blowing up. And here's the other side. If it comes in positive, they can just move your client into a different bank and take advantage of the lower rate, and you now look like an absolute hero, something that they won't forget, something that makes you a trusted advisor. It is absolutely critical that you make that phone call. So that's number one. And then let's look at why it all comes down to this. I've been saying it since the beginning of Q1. I've said it in the first week of putting these reports out that the end of Q1, the beginning of March, was going to lay out the remainder of 2024. You have to remember that we are working with a short timeline. We have an election, and I know we like to forget that sometimes, but we have a presidential election coming up, which to me means that the months of August, September, and October, and obviously the first few days of November, are basically going to have our clients in quicksand. We can already see it, right? We already see the client, the consumer waning. We see consumer spending coming down. We see consumer confidence coming down. And let's be honest, that's a great thing. It's non-inflationary. So that's a positive. It's just taking a while for that to funnel through the system because as you recall, we were spending like crazy for the holidays like we always do as Americans. So now these true reports coming out are going to be great indicators of where we're headed. The one thing that seems to be tailing a little bit is jobs. Jobs seems to be tailing. We had that explosive report in January, but we're also seeing now in the news a lot of layoffs that are coming up and so on and so forth. One thing that I think has really kept jobs inflated, and we've discussed this before as well, is consumer prices and consumer expenditures. It basically services, consumer services. Jesus, I can't even think. All right, pricing and services. They're inflated. All these companies got to increase their pricing due to all the supply chain issues. And what we see is a lot of them have not changed their pricing on either their goods or their services. If I go to the grocery store right now, take me 9 months ago, I'm still paying the same. Now, the media will tell you a different picture and everything's great and inflation's coming down and so on and so forth. But that affordability issue is still in play. That 2 bags of groceries cost me anywhere from $80 to $100 when it used to cost $50. That's just a reality, right? So as that's inflated, what it has allowed a lot of companies to do is, because they have no ability to restructure their debt, is they can live off of that higher revenue. They can increase some of these jobs. The consumer continues they were going out a ton. Now that's waning a little bit. So I think that's going to start to show itself that the jobs is coming. But it's the consumer, the consumer pricing and the services is going to be way down the line. We're going to see that start correcting itself. I actually think in Q3 as it gets to the polarizing phase of the election. And we're going to start to see that coming down. The good news is, though, the Fed only needs to see data, and it needs to see it in consecutive months, and that's why this kind coming up is so absolutely critical. They need to see consecutive data to where they're going to reduce that Fed funds rate. Also predicted was at the end of last year that July is going to be the first Fed funds rate cut. We need the data set to come out right now on Friday and Tuesday to be favorable to us, to set us up so it gets rates back down into the 6s, not into the 7s, and it sets us up for that Fed rate cut coming into the summer, midsummer, like they've already now have begun to talk about a little bit more recently, probably about 3 weeks ago. We've been saying it now for a while. But we need this to set us up. We are working with a short window. We only have the remainder of spring, the start of spring here, and through summer, 4 or 5 months is really going to dictate the year. Because once we get past the election, you're going to see another Fed rate cut, and that's going to line up for the remainder of 2025. Because as much as that's going to be a positive, just like we saw this last year, even though rates could probably be better at that time, it's the holidays. People typically don't make massive moves during the holidays. So that's not going to be a true game changer until we get into 2025. We got 4 to 5 months. Fingers crossed, say your prayers. We need Friday's jobs report and next week's CPI number to come in favorable, or we are in for a long 2024. So That's what I have out there. Great opportunity once again to pick up the phone, give your client, hey, start talking to them about what's coming up, because regardless of the way of the outcome, if they're thinking about selling or anything, at least you've had the conversation. You've talked to them. They're going to then call you and say, well, what does that mean? Should we do this? Should we still list our home? Or it came in favorable. Holy shit, we got to get to the market now. You're going to be top of mind. Use this next couple days, this week, as the opportunity to pick up the phone to everybody that you have been in contact with, right? And don't forget to give them advice. You want to float, but lock. All right, y'all, I am around as always working. You need anything, do not hesitate to give me a call. Would love an opportunity to talk about anything you have top of mind with yourself, your client, whatever the case may be. All right, everybody, have a great week. Happy selling out there. Cheers.